The next wave of business leaders won't just use AI, they'll master momentum with it, starting now. Welcome to the Mastering AI Momentum Show, where visionary founders and driven business leaders turn artificial intelligence, automation, and scalable systems into real growth, real scale, and real freedom. If you're ready to break bottlenecks, reclaim your title, and scale smarter, this is your playbook. Let's dive in. Here are your hosts, Allie Porter and Elise Smith.
Welcome to the Mastering AI Momentum Show, where today's top entrepreneurs share how they're scaling smarter, evolving faster, and navigating the future of business. I'm your host, Elise Smith, your business AI strategist, and I'm here with our incredible guest, Jason Donahue. So Jason is an AI-empowered executive leadership and peak performance coach who helps high-achieving leaders sharpen clarity, elevate their teams, and deliver exceptional results without burning out. Because man, that's the key, right?
Yes, it is.
And with over 25 years of experience as CEO, COO, and VP across industries, from healthcare to consumer goods, Jason brings real-world insight and proven strategies to his clients. As founder of Level Up Fusion Coaching, he's achieved a 95% client retention rate. Holy cow, that is huge. Like, you're going to want to take notes during this whole thing. Helping leaders boost effectiveness and productivity by over 40%. Jason blends cutting-edge AI with neuroscience and emotional intelligence tools to unlock leadership blind spots and optimize team dynamics and accelerate measurable, sustainable success. So welcome, Jason. We're so excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Absolutely. All right. So in your own words, who do you serve and how do you serve them?
Who I serve is two groups of people. One is executives, so we're looking at presidents, C-suite members, emerging, rising leaders within organizations. The other group that I really serve is athletes and athletic teams. There's a strong crossover between both sets, that success leaves common clues. And so we're able to borrow from one another to be able to enhance the other one at the same time.
Yeah. I love that. So is that your background then, is like coming from like a sports coaching world?
Yeah, it originally started with when I was in junior high several decades ago. I was looking for a competitive edge in the sports that I was participating in, and so one of the things I really looked at was mental performance and sports psychology, and really fell in love with that, and that drove my love of psychology. That later on, graduated with a bachelor's degree in psychology, went into clinical psychology graduate school. I did a pivot. In graduate school, because I found out I was going to be a dad, so it is some priorities shift at times. The definition of success can shift, but I stayed in that healthcare field, with behavioral health, psychiatric health, both at running facilities and in the community, and did that for over about 27 years. And during that time, not only did I remain in athletic coaching and sports development, working with teams and athletes, but also then carried over into leadership coaching. And so during that time, really acting as an executive coach, internal organizational development specialist for the companies I was in, and just fell in love with it. And again, we start to see the merging of these ideas, thoughts, and paradigms. And so it was easy to borrow back and forth.
Mm-hmm. And, I think I've seen that with quite a few company founders, is that they start with coaching sports and then they move into coaching business because it is so applicable. Like, everything can be just tweaked a little bit for business. So I love the fact that you got started there. I also love the fact that you're a psychology buff, because I wanted to do a double major when I was in college. I wanted to do psychology and also teaching. I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. And they wouldn't let me do both. I was so frustrated. So I still took psychology classes and still worked on my teaching degree. But how does psychology play into this for you?
I think psychology, one of the things that I talk about when I do coaching is I coach from ancient wisdom to artificial intelligence. And I think one of the most powerful roles about psychology is, do you know yourself? And until we have the ability to master the me, we can't master the we outside of us. And so I think psychology gives us frameworks of being able to examine our own thinking, our belief structures, values, and start to have that internal alignment because that's where transformative change comes from. I think there's a myth and a paradigm that it's the outside in factor, when actually what we really know is it's the inside out. So I think it's powerful in any, and I would argue you should have been able to allow to do double major, because teaching is that pulling forth, from the student inside. And what a great way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I think it should just go hand in hand with teaching, because you have the psychology piece of it. But actually, I didn't even end up being a teacher, because I went into business for myself. So, I love it. Well, So what kinds of, when you first got started with this business, what kinds of hurdles did you need to overcome in order to be able to reach the heights that you have now? Because you have a very successful company.
Yeah, I think one of the major things coming out of mental health and psychiatric health was, looking at what were the paradigms of how people looked at, judged, and had frameworks of others. And unfortunately, when you come from a deficit-based model, so mental disorders, leaders in that field who are great clinicians and therapists, but they rose to positions where their greatness at being able to diagnose and treat became their framework of what leadership should be. So being able to recognize am I looking at the deficit, which is also why I stepped away from clinical psychology and pivoted to my MBA in organizational psychology and development as well. Or, is it the deficit or the potentiality? How can we sit there and help people move toward desired outcomes? I'm not saying that mental health disorders and treatment don't have its place. It does, and it's really needed. But at the same time, if we only focus driving our car forward by looking in the rearview mirror, we're going to be in trouble. Yeah. So that was one of the frameworks that I think that along my career, in healthcare, was one of the more shaping paradigms for, are we looking at the balance of the equation? When we have the privilege of leading people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes to scaling your business, you really have to focus on three things, right? People, processes, and technology. And I think that your company does that so perfectly. So let's focus on people for a second. What were some aha moments that you had in leading your teams and being able to really start to grow your business by focusing on the people first?
Yeah, I think, to me, human capital is the keystone of capital. Great companies can have a lot of money, a lot of investment, but if they don't have the right people to carry out the mission and define the mission, they're in trouble already off the bat. And so I think, by coming from, again, that behavioral health field, psychiatric field, it's about how does the individual function, the individual within a group function, how does the group function, and then how does the group in communities function? So being able to scale by looking at that growth pattern, and so I carry that over into executive coaching by, it's great that you can be a top performer, but even higher level performance is helping others excel, even if that means past you. And I think as parents, as a model, we want our kids to be better than us. Yeah. So what is it we can borrow from different fields, such as parenting, to be able to be a highly effective and influential leader? And I think by focusing on people first, you start to unlock some of these other aspects of success.
Yeah. What do you do in your company to focus on people first?
Yeah, part of it is, I like the idea of what is the individual and team's mission? What are their values? What's their vision as well? And then what are first principles? Their purpose. Relationships can be great until we hit that wall of a hidden rule that we didn't realize was there. And so by making the invisible visible, now we can start to develop a shared playbook and understanding. One of the things, I've had the privilege of moving around the nation a lot in my career and going different places. It's amazing that we can all speak English in the United States, but we don't all speak English in the United States. And what I mean by that is you can use a word in one part of the United States and it means something so dramatically different to someplace else. But oftentimes we don't step in it until it's too late to figure it out. And so what is it that we can align around about how do we agree to play this game of business or this game of life or this game of relationships? And once we have this set, do we have alignment with values? Is that really the vision we want? And does this serve our bigger mission? Now we can start alignment internally and with those around us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that one of the things you guys are doing really well is you have the people first, right? But then you also laid on that the AI. So when you introduced AI to your teams and were saying, I think this is how we're going to, move forward with our business, including AI, how did you prepare your company for that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of first principles, that we need to concentrate on, internally, my company and the companies I work with, is, one, understanding that AI can produce maps, but it's not the compass. And so it's wisdom that provides the compass, and the wisdom is about the values, is about that clarity and about alignment. Otherwise, what happens is we can move quickly with AI, but we can move quickly off track with AI, and we're confusing work with effectiveness. And I think that's one of the first principles. I think another one too is understanding that AI is a great informational tool, but it's not a transformational tool. Coaching and leadership provides the narrative to what the information is. And with that, that's when data can become culture. And it's just, we can get flooded with statistics, for example, but what do the numbers mean? And one of my favorite sayings by Samuel Clemens is, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. I mean, you can use math to sit there and do that, but when we look at ancient wisdom, it's storytelling is where transformation comes in. And so how do we take this information flood that can be given to us by AI with all these maps, but set the compass and set the story behind it? There's a third principle you really talk about, and that's that AI amplifies human intent. And so coaching allows for that clarification of, are we in alignment with values? Are we consistent with values? Are they the right values? And by the way, I'm not saying that once values are set, it's that way always and forever, because as we grow, our definition of success grows, and what's important to us grows and changes. But if I'm bringing to AI wrong intent, unhealthy intent, what I'm going to get is amplified unhealthy intent. And unfortunately, we've seen that recently in the news with a young man who took his own life. After a conversation with ChatGPT, to where there weren't parameters put into place for a flag in the system not to engage in certain conversations, like there is, like, how do you make meth? I mean, it won't give you those things right there. But what it was in this conversation, AI kept trying to give the user information it believed the user wanted. And so the user brought an intent, and the AI amplified it to the point that it's such a negative outcome, took place, a sad outcome that took place.
Yeah. And we have to remember, it's just a tool. Tools can be used in so many different ways, but it's all in how the user uses the tool. The hammer cannot, put a nail in a board on its own. And the same thing is with AI. Like, even all those terrifying, stories or movies or whatever of AI taking over the world, we get to control that. So let's not do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great point, because there's a paradox of performance with AI. And what I mean by that is, we have to slow down to actually speed up. So if you look at swimming, for example, it's fun to watch Olympic swimming events, because you can drown, two ways. One is you don't move in water, you're going to drown. The other one is, if you flail away without purpose, you drown. And so again, when we talk about, the AI with wisdom, is wisdom promotes self-reflection, those pause moments. Do I journal? Do I take the moment to meditate? Do I take the moment to question, is this truly what I want to do? And, and wrapping a human edge around it, which is emotional intelligence, intuition, consciousness, connection, because AI can do some of those things, tricking you about that it is that. But when we slow down and really ask, is this the right thing? In my heart, emotional intelligence, does this feel right? Is this aligned? That's when we can really speed up, because we're taking the moments to reflect. Otherwise, AI is just this fire hose,
Yep.
And good luck getting a Dixie cup drink out of a fire hose.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love your analogies. It's so perfect. So we talked about people. Now let's move into like processes. How do you use AI when it comes to processes?
I think with processes, part of it is I think that there's this mythology that if I can just sit down and ask questions, I'm just going to get the best answers. But what we understand from human understanding too is it's the quality of the question leads to the quality of the answer.
Most
And so really talking with leaders about, are you dialing in to what you really want to know? And I think there's core questions as humans. Remember, we talked about psychology and knowing yourself. When something happens in life, the event takes place, but we choose the response, which leads to the outcome. So an event takes place, we start to ask questions like, what does this mean? And most people naturally do that. As humans, we're pattern making machines. But not many people ask the second question, which is, what else could this mean? Or what if the opposite was true? The moment that we're able to start to take different perspectives is the moment that we enrich our environment to make better decisions with more information. And so with leaders, it's about how can we sit down with AI with whatever challenge or opportunity you have and formulate a prompt, a series of questions and conversation that have you start to drill down again, and by being able to provide, this is the values I want you to act within. These are the principles I want you to maintain. Because again, if AI is just going to give you more of what you bring it, you better make sure what you're bringing is in a healthy definition to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the coolest things about AI is that we're not just thinking of our questions in our head of like what we want to know. It's a prompt. Like you have to start with a prompt, which basically is a question or a command or whatever that might be for the situation. But I think one of the things that I've seen as I've been talking to, CEOs of these amazing companies is that it's getting you to think more, right? Because if you, and differently in a better way, because if you're in your own mind and you're saying, okay, what's going on with my business? How come I can't get past this particular plateau? How can I just get more clients? And you only take it that far, then you're not going to be able to see the full picture. But with AI, then you can kind of dig in deeper and it can guide you in that way. And of course, paired with a coach like you, then that really, really amplifies the process. But it's never been so clear, I don't think, to be able to have the question here and see the answer here and realize that wasn't actually the question you should ask in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, great point, Elise. I think one of the things that I really try to promote with folks that I work with is when you give AI a prompt, ask it or tell it, ask me any questions you need to for clarity to be able to complete this prompt, this direction, this instruction I'm giving you. And it's amazing at times what AI can come back with. They were like, I didn't think about that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think, and that's when AI is the thought partner, with you, and it helps to develop a new operating system for leaders. I think again, there's this mythology of the more AI, the more competitive advantage. I think the true competitive advantage is the wisdom leaders can bring into AI is what's going to create the advantage.
Yeah.
Otherwise we have speed without direction.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing with AI. It's getting faster and faster. That's great. It can get deeper and deeper, but the question is it the right question? So being able to tell it, ask me any question, and then being able to go deeper with that. Ask me any questions that would be unconventional to help you. Ask any questions that would be non-traditional to help you. Because now I'm dialing in even further with market acquisition, client acquisition forever. Yes, there's standard approaches, everything else. But what about that little key twist that maybe no one's thought about yet, that AI can see the pattern that we just don't see yet? We'd never know unless we said, ask me something maybe I'm not paying attention to right now.
Yes, you just dropped such a golden tip that I think everybody who is using AI, especially ChatGPT, because that's kind of the mainstream one, really needs to pay attention to. Is it's not just us asking the question and getting an answer; it's diving in deeper. And so to have ChatGPT or whatever model you're using actually ask you the questions and guide it as if you don't know, because there's so many perspectives and so many different ways to look at it. That's where you can really get the most out of AI. So I love that. And I'm sure you teach your people how to do that in a really amazing way, right?
Yes, yes. And I think the other thing that I really do to help this process too is if you remember when we were growing up and in school and we had to write a paper, for school, we always went back and reread it. And
Yeah.
we always caught things like, oh, yes, I need to change this, everything else. It's great to ask AI to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So frequently it used to be where prompt language and certain language was, you needed to be on top of it. Now it's more conversational style. So I'll get a result and output from AI and I'll say, now I want you to double check your work. Is
Yeah.
there anything you feel you missed? And research shows that actually higher quality responses come in because just like us on first pass through, it may just be skipping some steps.
Mm-hmm.
And so just as we double check, ask it to double check. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're a good student, that was right. Like, you only reread it if you were a good student.
That's right.
I completely agree. I love that perspective because it's not just, I mean, it really shouldn't ever be give a question, get an answer like that. If you're only at that level, you've got to go deeper to really understand and challenge it. I mean,
Yes.
we use ChatGPT all the time to help build out our AI agents because, man, it knows what's possible. We don't know what's possible, but there are steps that it'll go through and it's like, that contradicts that. And so it's not like you're just removing your brain from the process. It's not like you're taking the humanity out of it. When you are using AI tools like this, you still have to think. It just helps you to think in a more organized way, right?
Yes. And I think one important part to build in that loop, like you just brought up, is today's solutions aren't going to be tomorrow's. And so when we build things like agents, when we build things like questions, I would say put in your schedule to come back even 3 months later and say, I want you to review this. Is there any additions that would be best for me to adjust now that wasn't available 90 days ago?
Yeah.
Because things scale quickly, and so our solution should scale quickly. And it's just what you said earlier. If the only tool I have is a hammer, everything becomes a nail.
Yes.
What if I have a screwdriver, a saw, all these other tools now by going back and saying, and what else, and what else, and what else?
Yeah, love it. Oh, this conversation is so awesome. So what other technologies do you use? Like, is it just ChatGPT, or tell us about your AI journey a little bit?
I think if I would encourage folks to really take a look at 3 tools, that would be key. One is your AI model of choice. So ChatGPT is probably my go-to model. Grok and Gemini, I'll also use at times. I have a lot of friends that love Claude, and each has their strengths and weaknesses too. But the second one I'd say is Perplexity. I think Perplexity is definitely a game changer. Done are the days where we go to Google and type in something, then we have to sort through all these websites and find something. Now we can dial in Perplexity about give me this, and it'll do that for you. And then give you the links. So we're not hunting and pecking, we're just following the string. The third one I'd say is Napkin AI. Because I think, again, as the human brain's wired, we're more visual than anything else. And Napkin does a great job of being able to take data, you select it and say, give me an infographic. I mean, it'll give you a visual representation, and there's the aha moment. I think for a lot of people to be able to, again, hit different learning styles and information processing styles. So I would say those are the big 3 that I work with the executive C-suite members I do. And then if they have a good foundation with that, then we go to advanced prompting. Then we go to custom GPTs, and then we start to just scale up from there. But I think AI has advanced so quickly that people don't have solid foundations. And so we just need to come back and formulate those first.
Yeah. And even just the difference between ChatGPT and Perplexity, like, can you explain the difference between the 2?
Yeah, and I think this gap actually is closing quite a bit. So if you think of a continuum where, ChatGPT can become very creative, and that's where hallucination problems can come in too, where it's inventing things that didn't happen, but boy, it makes it sound like it did. But Perplexity is that fact finding. What is the exact data that it's drawing into? Now, what's interesting is they're getting closer and closer to each other. And in fact, there's more and more SaaS companies that used to provide very unique services that now ChatGPT is just gobbled up and does it itself. So they're increasing their own spectrum impact. And Perplexity itself is also increasing its own spectrum impact. But if we look at, again, what can be my more creative partner and what can be my more research fact-based, so I can take this, come back to the creative, and now start to stack in between or with the two in synergy, I think that's where they both can amplify each other.
That is so cool. Yeah, I think that we tend to kind of like lump all of the LLMs in the same bucket. And it really is different tools for different needs. And just how fast AI changes every single day is like amazing. So even if you couldn't get an answer to what you were looking for before, or it didn't like fit your values or fit the way that you like to do things, I loved the tip you gave. Go back to it. Right? Don't just give up on it or build something and then see how you can optimize it with the new technology that we have. ChatGPT 5 recently came out, and wow, there's even more stuff that you can do in there. So love your story and just how you're utilizing AI. So what is the future for your company? Like what's the next big step that you want to take, and how do you feel like AI is going to help you get there?
I think AI, again, one of the most powerful aspects of AI is that it can determine and see patterns that we just don't see. Now, we do the same. I mean, this is where intuition comes in that AI does not have. But when we blend these together, what are the insights, the recipes, the patterns, the actions we can put together to help excel human performance? And so, when I'm working with athletes, in their specific sport area, what are different practice skills, being able to break that down further and further and further, so we can use the idea that a little becomes a lot. And so we're not trying to master this big step, but now we're able to focus on these small steps that can synergize and raise the whole at the same time. And again, what we do in athletics is the same thing that we can do in business with professional communication, executive presence, culture shaping, culture guidance, dealing with hard activities, M&A activities, layoffs. How can we sit there and still be human first, but now I have this ability to wrap expertise around me to inform me to make better decisions. I think that's where I'm continuing to focus on. And, what is it that we can draw from lessons of the medicine, for example, paleopathology, that oftentimes our solutions to our problems are best found by looking at the past. And so what is AI doing right now? Well, it's wonderful in biopharma. I mean, it's going to develop and is developing compounds we just haven't thought of yet because we haven't seen the pattern. But when we're able to look backwards and pull up that, hey, it's interesting that in this blue zone, for example, they tend to do this, feed that information over, let the AI crunch, and now it comes back and we tell the narrative. Now that's acceleration in all areas.
Yeah, and just knowing where the human aspect is needed and most effective versus the AI aspect. So I think that there's just so many amazing things that AI is coming out with, and it's just going to get better and better from here. But we can't lose that human piece to it either. And I love what you guys stand for within your company. So as we wrap up here, where can people find you if they want to connect with you or learn more about your coaching and all the things that you do?
Yeah, I think it just is. Thank you for posting that at the bottom of the screen. My website's Level Up Fusion Coaching. I know that sounds like a long title right there, but it is about leveling up. But fusion is about being able to draw from all aspects into one to help us out, and that's where the title comes from. The other part too is feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Jason Donahue there. Very happy to connect with people. I do put articles and blogs and ideas, on there as well for people to pull from.
Awesome. So wonderful. Well, thank you so much again for being part of the show. It's been great just to get to know you and just feel the energy that you are bringing to AI, right? It's a very optimistic energy, but at the same time, that there's the human connection part too. And you're doing a great job, in my opinion, of really balancing out the two. So loved having this conversation with you. And I know that there's so many golden nuggets that people are getting from just listening to this. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to have a conversation.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to Mastering AI Momentum, where AI means artificial intelligence, but also means abundance and impact. And they are doing it beautifully at Level Up Fusion Coaching. Because scaling really isn't oh my heavens. Because scaling isn't about doing more. There we go. It's about building smarter and staying true to what matters most. So we will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks again, Jason.
You bet.
You've been listening to Mastering AI Momentum. If today's episode gave you clarity or sparked a breakthrough, share it, review it, leave us a comment, and show Ali and Elise how you're turning AI into ROI. And make sure you subscribe, because the next episode could be the strategy that unlocks your next level. Until then, build smart, scale fast, and let AI multiply your momentum.